All right, folks, good evening. And it is certainly a beautiful evening. It is time of the week. It is Caribbean America's single economy and case reporting news. I'm Anthony Weeks reporting. And I hope you're having a safe and productive day so far and week so far. Thank you for tuning into the program. So this evening, we're going to have we're going to report on two fronts. The main fake focus and featured topic of discussion this evening is the Biden administration briefing on the current status and update on the U.S. Strategic engagement in the Caribbean. That law was created back in 2016, and every administration that has been in office, the State Department is assigned to, if you will, the facilitation, the implementation, and the administration of that law. It's a legislative act and now policy to be implemented by the various executive branch of the U.S. government, and each administration who heads up the State Department is responsible for briefing Congress as to the annual progress of the U.S. strategic engagement in the Caribbean. But before we bring you that special report from Congress, it's going to be a hearing out of Congress where the Biden administration, President Biden administration, reporting on the current status. I want to first start with, if you will, the congratulating the Taiwan government and the Taiwan people for celebrating their 100th National Day. This took place on October 10th. And they had celebrated it. I think it was in about a week. They celebrated that. I'm aware, but it could be longer. But I have not traveled going on 2 years, but I travel very frequently, often to Taiwan and the Asian Pacific region in my official capacity as a special economic envoy to Taiwan for the U.S. Virgin Islands. And because of the pandemic, I have not traveled, and I typically attend these important events, government events, and but in lieu of me not being there, I was kept in the loop as to what was happening, and want to share just a little bit about some of the activities that took place at the Taiwan 100th National Day celebration in observance to the democracy of Taiwan. And so some of you that you're listening on via the radio, but you're also watching on television, what you're seeing is a photo of myself and my colleagues where we met, and we were hosted by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Joseph Wu, and we had an opportunity to have a candid discussion engagement with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and it was a good discussion, and his cabinet, his staff cabinet. And we had folks literally from the international press from around the world, from various countries within Europe, and I represent the United States at that event with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We also had an opportunity to also meet with the Taiwan Foundation for Democracy, and clearly the situation where we heard from the government of the Taiwanese government, but we also heard from the nonprofit organization Taiwan Foundation for Democracy, and that was also a very productive engagement. But recently, like I said, you have the Republic of China Taiwan National Reception. Here you have the photograph of the new Director General at the Miami TECO office. The Lieutenant Governor attended the ceremony as well. And here's another photograph of the Lieutenant Governor, and then you have the Director General and I believe his spouse. And we also had an opportunity to tour the Cavalon distillery. That's Taiwan's top spirit, and they had it on the exhibit on display for sampling, and it's a very good spirit as well. And here's an example of also some of the, if you will, appetizers and food that took place at the ceremony. But most important at this point, I want to share with you what a Taiwanese student who is a violinist, and she performed at the event. And here I'm going to play two parts videos of that reception. All right, and here is a more extensive performance by the violinist. And again, she's a young Taiwanese studying in Miami, and she is pretty good actually. Here is a more extended version of her performance at the Taiwan National Day reception. All right, that's just a little sampling of the performance by the young Taiwanese student studying in Miami, and she's a violinist, and she performed that day for the reception of the 100th Taiwan National Day celebration. And let me just kind of give you a little bit of background about what the National Day is about. According to Wikipedia, the National Day of the Republic of China, also referred to as Double Tenth Day or Double Tenth Day, is a public holiday on the 10th of October, now held annually in Taiwan, officially the Republic of China, ROC. It was also celebrated during the ROC rule in the mainland China before 1949. The date continues to be observed by the subsequent People Republic of China as the anniversary of the Zhenghai Revolution, but not as the public holiday. It's commemorates in the start of the Wangchang uprising on the 10th of October 1911, which ultimately led to the collapse of the imperial Qing dynasty and the establishment of the Republic of China on the 1st of January 1912. And there you have it, folks. That's the, if you will, the report on and congratulating the Taiwanese government and the people of Taiwan on celebrating the 100th National Day of the country. It's a national holiday. It takes place on the 10th of October every year. It's an annual event. And again, best wishes to the people of Taiwan and the government of Taiwan on their continued effort in spearheading democracy in that part of the world. All right. Now, coming up, like I said, we have the report from Congress, from the Biden administration, reporting to Congress on the U.S. strategic engagement in the Caribbean. And here is the briefing from the administration.
The downstream effects.
All right, we're starting all over. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. This hearing, entitled "The Biden Administration's Efforts to deepen U.S. engagement in the Caribbean will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess of the committee at any point, and all members will have 5 days to submit statements, strenuous materials, and questions for the record, subject to the length limitation in the rules. To insert something into the record, please have your staff email the previously mentioned address or contact the subcommittee staff. As a reminder to members joining remotely, please keep your video function on at all times, even when you're not recognized by the chair. Members are responsible for muting and unmuting themselves, and please remember to mute yourself after you finish speaking. Consistent with H.R. 8 and the accompanying regulations, staff will only mute members and witnesses as appropriate when they are not under recognition to eliminate background noise. I see that we have a quorum, and I now recognize myself for opening remarks. I am glad we're holding this hearing to talk about the region that is too often overlooked. The countries of the Caribbean are among our closest neighbors, yet we frequently fail to pay enough attention to this region. As chairman of the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee, I am committed to ensuring that we focus more on the Caribbean going forward. I also want to commend my friend Greg Meeks, the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, who has been very clear since the start of this Congress that the Caribbean should be a top priority for the United States. I know Chairman Meeks agrees with me that the best way for us to show we are ready to elevate the Caribbean in our foreign policy is by sending vaccines to the region as quickly as possible. I applaud the Biden administration for its announcement that it will donate 80 million vaccines globally by the end of June. However, today I'm urging the administration to quickly step up our efforts in the Caribbean. Many countries in the region are relying on Chinese vaccines because we aren't providing any alternative. Other countries, like Haiti, have yet to distribute a single vaccine dose, while the pandemic claims more lives each day. Given the direct travel routes between the Caribbean countries and the U.S., and the close ties between our diaspora communities and our countries throughout the Caribbean, it is vital to U.S. national security that we help Caribbean overcome this pandemic. We should be proud of the fact that the vaccines produced in the United States are the most effective in the world. While I understand that the Biden administration wants to strengthen COVAX, I believe that we should be sending vaccines directly to countries in need. We should get the credit for the vaccines we donate. Beyond vaccines, we need to work with our Caribbean friends on the long road to recovery in the wake of the pandemic. Many of these countries depend heavily on tourism, an industry that has been crushed by the pandemic, which is likely to rebound slowly. In the Dominican Republic, we have a government that is eager to deepen engagement with the United States, but so far, they have had to rely on vaccines from China. We should step up and send vaccines to our partners in need. We should also help support their fight against corruption and deepen our security cooperation under the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative. In Guyana, where I traveled last year, we should work to ensure the proceeds of oil revenues benefit the entire population. As I said during the trip, we want to engage all actors in Guyana, including businesses, civil society, the current government, and the opposition to advance inclusive economic growth. The severe flooding that Guyana has faced in recent months is a reminder that climate change is having devastating impact on our friends in the Caribbean. We need to step up our efforts to support climate resilience and energy security in the region. In Haiti, I am deeply concerned about the gang violence that has spiraled out of control under a government that is no longer able to carry out its most basic functions. In just 2 weeks, over 8,000 women and children have been forced from their homes in Port-au-Prince due to this violence, according to the United Nations. I am glad that Secretary Blinken spoke out against a constitutional referendum there. We must do more to help the Haitian people overcome the economic and political and security crisis they are facing. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses about how we can deepen our economic and security cooperation with partners in the region and harness the Development Finance Corporation to counter China's influence in the region and help advance a rapid economic recovery. The COVID-19 pandemic has created tremendous challenges for the Caribbean, but it also provides an opportunity for us to demonstrate our commitment to this region. I truly hope that we will seize this opportunity. Thank you, and I now turn to the ranking member, Mr. Green, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman. Cyrus, really appreciate you holding this committee, and I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. Thank you. Thanks for your service to the country. I'm glad we're hosting this hearing and convening this discussion. For too long, the United States Caribbean policy has lacked a strategic focus. The region is a key gateway to the United States. It's an important economic partner for trade and tourism. It's a vital component of U.S. national security, and it holds the largest bloc of Taiwan's diplomatic allies. I hope the full committee will work to prioritize the Caribbean basin moving forward. In 2021, the region's future is bright, but not without significant challenges impacting both the United States and the greater Latin American community. The Caribbean struggles with persistent violence, transnational criminal networks, drug trafficking. In 2019, roughly 24% of the cocaine departing South America transited through the Caribbean Sea, including both maritime vessels and illicit aircraft. That's why the United States launched the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, or CBSI, a regional security initiative to reduce drug trafficking and promote safety and security. I'm proud to co-lead the reauthorization of the CBSI this Congress. With Congressman Espaya, we must double down our efforts against drug trafficking that wreaks havoc in our region and the corruption that allows them to survive. Our bill helps do just that by providing the resources necessary to improve security cooperation and combat the criminal organizations that victimize their own countries as well as our own. The COVID-19 pandemic has decimated key resources, economic growth, trade, travel, tourism. According to the World Travel Tourism Council, the Caribbean was the world's most tourism-reliant region before the pandemic. But in 2020, these sectors took the largest hit, of course, experiencing a 58% decrease when compared to 2019. As countries continue to get vaccinated, we must prioritize resuming the long-standing U.S. Caribbean travel and tourism industries. And while the 2020 hurricane season wasn't that significant, 2021 remains an unknown, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has predicted that there may be as many as 10 hurricanes this season. An average season sees 7. I look forward to hearing from USAID on how you guys are working with regional partners on disaster preparedness and response management. 2020 also proved to be a pivotal year for the Caribbean's energy resources, with Guyana's oil sector growing and potentially providing an alternate to Venezuela's. The oil and gas sector is critical to their country and could transform it from one of the Caribbean's poorest countries to its wealthiest. The Chinese Communist Party has vastly increased its influence. Its influence in the Caribbean over the past 20 years, with 13 Caribbean countries having signed on to China's Belt and Road Initiative. The CCP has expanded its network of loaned-back infrastructure projects, tourism and telecom investment, and relationships with regional defense counterparts. China's disregard for the environment is a huge threat to the Caribbean tourism industry. That's why I'm drafting a bill to move supply chains away from Communist China and into the Western Hemisphere. Our dependence on China is a threat to our national security, and the Western Hemisphere must become more economically independent if we're to safeguard our future. The Caribbean is a region of strategic importance and numerous challenges. I'm hopeful that today's hearing can shed some light on the region as we work to prioritize our Caribbean partners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Green. I will now introduce Ms. Laura Lachman. She is the Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs. Ms. Lachman is a career member of the Senior Foreign Service with over 30 years' experience in policy analysis and implementation. Most recently, she was the Director of the Office of Canadian Affairs. She has served in overseas assignments in Colombia, Venezuela, and Brazil, in Washington, in the Office of Cuban Affairs, wow, and the Bureau of South Asian Affairs. She holds a Bachelor of Arts from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Ms. Lachman, we welcome you to our hearing. You gotta tell me about this Cuban thing you had here. We will then hear from Ms. Barbara Feinstein. She serves as the Acting Senior Deputy Assistant Administrator within USAID Bureau of Latin America and the Caribbean. Ms. Feinstein oversees the agency's development priorities in Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Before joining the LAC Bureau, she was the Senior Deputy Assistant Administrator for Legislative Affairs in USAID Bureau for Legislative and Public Affairs. She holds a master's degree in International and Public Affairs from Princeton University and a Bachelor of Arts from the University of California, Berkeley. Ms. Feinstein, thank you for joining us today. Finally, we will hear from Ms. Heidi Fulton. She is currently the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere Programs in the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement. Ms. Fulton most recently served as a Director of the Office of Mexican Affairs. Before that, she led the U.S. Embassy in Honduras as Deputy Chief of Mission, and then as Chief of Mission from 2016 to 2019. She also served as a Director of Counter-Narcotics at the Kabul Embassy in Afghanistan, and as a Counselor for Public Affairs in Quito, Ecuador. Prior to joining the Foreign Service, she served in Active Army Reserve in June 2020 after 28 years of service. She is a graduate from Boston College and earned her master's from Troy State University. Ms. Fulton, thank you for your service and for joining us today. I ask the witnesses to please limit your testimony for 5 minutes. Without objection, your prepared written statements will be made part of the record. Ms. Lachman, you are recognized for your testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Sires, Ranking Member Green, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to testify before you today on this important issue. For decades, the United States has partnered with the Caribbean people to promote stronger and more vibrant communities. Today, the Caribbean region is experiencing a sharp economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. This has devastated government revenues and caused rising unemployment, which could bring more crime, irregular migration, and malign activity by state and non-state actors unless we continue our support. Through the U.S. Caribbean 2020 strategy, we have sought to increase and deepen U.S. engagement with Caribbean nations. We are now building on that strategy to guide interagency activities into the future. On April 21st, Secretary Blinken met with CARICOM foreign ministers to highlight our commitment to working with all countries in the region to advance bilateral and regional interests. We also actively engage Caribbean nations multilaterally to confront some of the region's most pressing challenges, including the growing threat to democracy and human rights in Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Haiti. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, on June 3rd, the administration announced plans for the global distribution of 25 million U.S. vaccine doses, of which approximately 6 million doses are designated for Latin America and the Caribbean. On June 21st, the administration announced its plan for the remaining 55 million of the 80 million doses President Biden pledged to allocate by the end of June, including an additional 14 million doses for Latin America and the Caribbean to be shared through COVAX. Moreover, the United States is purchasing an additional 500 million doses of Pfizer vaccines and donating them to 92 low and lower middle income countries as defined by Gavi's COVAX advanced market commitment. The United States is an important commercial and trade partner of the Caribbean region. Through the Caribbean Basin Initiative, CBI, we maintain a positive impact on a number of Caribbean basin economies. On March 22nd, the White House launched the Small and Less Populous Island Economies, or Selpi Initiative, which is a framework designed to further strengthen U.S. economic collaboration with island countries and territories in the Caribbean, North Atlantic, and Pacific regions. On energy, USAID's Caribbean Energy Initiative marks a planned 5-year, $25 million investment in a more sustainable, reliable, and resilient energy future for the Caribbean. We have also identified the need for diversification of energy supplies and promotion of U.S. exports to address challenges and promote Caribbean energy security. Through the State Department-led U.S. Caribbean Resilience Partnership, USCRP, we seek to strengthen Caribbean partner resilience to the impacts of climate change and severe weather-related events. USCRP guides efforts to advance and coordinate U.S. and partner country resilience around the objectives of supporting adaptation to climate change, enhancing regional disaster preparedness, providing geological hazards monitoring and disaster mapping, and developing resilient infrastructure. On education, we seek to build human capital in the region through increased educational activities by coordinating region-wide engagements through academic and professional exchange programs and massive online open courses, as well as increasing opportunities with diaspora and education stakeholders to build networks between the United States and the Caribbean. Finally, the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, CBSI, a regional security partnership with 13 Caribbean countries co-led by the U.S. government, CARICOM, and the Dominican Republic, remains the centerpiece of our security efforts. CBSI programs advance our goals to reduce illicit trafficking, improve public safety and security, and prevent youth crime and violence. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. I now turn to you for your testimony, Ms. Feinstein.
Chairman Sidis, Ranking Member Green, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the United States Agency for International Development. Over the past several months, the United States has heard from leaders across the Caribbean on their most pressing needs as they work to increase their resilience to natural disasters and climate change and overcome the challenges of COVID-19, be they health, economic, or security related. Caribbean leaders seek enhanced investment in disaster resilience and hurricane preparedness, increased support for crime and violence prevention, help to strengthen health and education, and above all, access to COVID-19 vaccines. And as a neighbor, partner, and friend of the Caribbean, the United States stands ready to respond, both because it is the right thing to do and because doing so is in our national interest. As we begin the hurricane season, USAID is well poised to support the region in its time of need, with a team of 100+ disaster experts located across the Caribbean and pre-positioned emergency relief supplies to prioritize humanitarian needs during major storms and other emergencies. USAID is already providing nearly $5 million to assist more than 20,000 people displaced by the recent eruption of the La Soufriere volcano in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And in Guyana, we are supporting more than 36,000 families as they recover from devastating floods. In Haiti, where escalating violence continues to paralyze economic activity and trigger the displacement of individuals and whole communities, USAID has provided more than $34 million to address emergency food security needs and prevent malnutrition, reaching over 580,000 Haitians. But while we support countries during their time of crisis, we are also helping the Caribbean to build greater resilience at the national, regional, and local levels by improving disaster risk reduction, promoting biodiversity conservation, generating data to improve climate forecasting and strategic planning, and supporting communities to plan for and adapt to shocks. USAID is also increasing energy resilience in this region, which, as you know, has some of the world's highest energy costs. Through our $25 million 5-year Caribbean Energy Initiative, the agency is working to help diversify the energy sources used in the region's grids, strengthen infrastructure to withstand major shocks, and enhance the ability of utilities to manage their grids for greater resilience. Of course, the most pressing issue facing the Caribbean today is COVID-19, whose impacts stretch well beyond the health sector. To date, USAID has provided more than $28 million in health, humanitarian assistance, vaccine support, and economic growth funding to respond to COVID impacts in the Caribbean. On June 6th, as my colleague mentioned, the White House announced its plans to purchase and donate 500 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines to 92 countries, several of which are in the Caribbean. And the region will also benefit from the White House's announcement of more than 20.6 million excess doses from the U.S. domestic supply. USAID is well positioned to complement these deliveries with technical assistance to support equitable vaccine distribution and planning. As members of this committee are well aware, high rates of crime and violence remain endemic in the region. Through the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, USAID is helping to improve the efficiency of judicial systems, promote governance, and fight corruption. Importantly, our work also helps to provide at-risk youth from the highest crime municipalities with educational, economic, and social opportunities to ensure that they can live productive and peaceful lives. In St. Kitts and Nevis, for example, we've seen a sizable increase in target communities' perceptions of safety as a result of our efforts, with perceptions increasing from 54% in 2018 to almost 70% just 2 years later. And approximately 60% of Eastern and Southern Caribbean youth who completed USAID-sponsored workforce development programs have now secured employment in the retail, hospitality, and tourism sectors. Yet while these results are heartening, we recognize that much more remains to be done. And with this committee's strong support, we stand ready to continue to respond. To that end, it is important to note how our model of assistance differs from others, namely that of the People's Republic of China, which furthers dependence or unsustainable debt. By contrast, the U.S. model is one of partnership with the countries in which we work. Our assistance promotes a country's own development path, consistent with our shared values and interests. Again, thank you for your commitment to the Caribbean, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Ms. Fulton, you are recognized for your testimony.
Thank you. Chairman Series, Ranking Member Green, distinguished members of the panel, thank you for calling this hearing and for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the progress of U.S. diplomatic and foreign assistance in the Caribbean, our third border. Today's hearing comes at a difficult time for our Caribbean partners who face violent crime and high homicide rates driven by increased gang-related violence, illegal firearms trade, and impunity as a result of ineffective criminal justice institutions. Our security partnership with our Caribbean neighbors remains fundamental to combating these shared challenges that threaten the safety and security of our citizens across the region and in the United States. The mission of the Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, or INL, is to keep Americans safe by countering crime, illegal drugs, and instability abroad. Under the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative, or CBSI, which was established over a decade ago, we work in partnership with 13 countries and regional security institutions to build law enforcement and justice sector capacities to reduce drug trafficking and criminal threats to the United States, to enhance citizen security, and to hold criminals accountable. While the challenges are immense, I am confident that the partnerships we have developed under CBSI and bilaterally with Haiti have better positioned our Caribbean neighbors to confront drug trafficking, undercut the profits of gangs and criminal groups, and to build more effective criminal justice institutions. Maritime security is central to INL's efforts to combat drug trafficking in the region. For several years, INL has partnered with the Coast Guard on a multi-pronged maritime capacity building program to improve vessel maintenance, develop interdiction capability, and enhance investigations and prosecutions. Regional Coast Guard advisors based in the Dominican Republic support sustainable improvements for interdiction operations and investigations, and will soon expand across efforts across the region. Combined with the Coast Guard technical assistance and training, in fiscal year 2021, these joint efforts have already contributed to 29 drug interdictions and 159 individuals arrested by Dominican Republic partners. We are also working to enhance sub-regional cooperation, improve maritime domain awareness, and develop a regional maritime security strategy. We prioritize building partner capacity to target illicit finance and undercut the profits of gangs and criminal groups that drive violence and instability across the region. In partnership with the National Center for State Courts, INL is implementing a civil asset recovery project that works with partner governments to draft model legislation and train financial investigators, attorneys, and judges. The 6 CBSI countries implementing such legislation have recovered more than $1.27 million in cash and $2.5 million in property since 2013, which is reinvested into strengthening Caribbean security criminal justice sector institutions. A host of larger actions, valued at more than $60 million, are currently underway. Building the capacity of regional institutions is critical to INL's efforts in the Caribbean. The Caribbean Community's Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, or IMPACS, the Regional Security System, and Operation Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, our decades-old trilateral counter-narcotics partnership, are each integral partners in multiplying and sustaining our programmatic efforts. Since CBSI's inception, annual cocaine seizures in the region have increased more than 200%, due in part to the strong regional collaboration which is enabled by the program. INL recently transferred management of CBSI Connect, a regional online law enforcement training program, to IMPACTS. Since 2012, INL has supported the development, maintenance, and installation of a CBSI Connect at 17 Caribbean law enforcement academies, including all CBSI countries, Belize, and Haiti. CBSI Connect provided Caribbean criminal justice sector institutions connectivity to ensure key functions continued during COVID-19 lockdowns and convinced previously hesitant justice sector actors of the platform's value to ongoing training. In Haiti, we continue to invest in the professionalization and expansion of their national police, which since 2019 has been the sole guarantor of citizen security. The Haitian police continues to mature even as they face intensifying criminal gang threats to law and order and citizen security. Transnational crime, violence, and insecurity are threats that we share with our Caribbean neighbors and require our coordinated and sustained efforts. Where our programs are matched with committed partners in the region, we see results, and we will continue to work to ensure the effectiveness of future programs to build capacity and enhance regional security cooperation. We look forward to your questions.
Thank you. We will now go to questions. I guess my first question is to you, Ms. Lachman and Ms. Feinstein. You know, I welcome the news that the Biden administration is doing 30 million vaccines that it will send out by the end of June, and they will go to Latin America and the Caribbean. How are they distributing these vaccines in this region?
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we are now in the process of working with partners in the region, both on
Who are the partners?
CARICOM's Public Health Agency, CARPA, as well as directly with certain of the bilateral governments to work out the modalities for the transfer of these vaccines. So these discussions are ongoing right now, and we're trying to make sure that we can ship them in a way that they arrive safely and that they maintain their effectiveness, since, as was pointed out earlier, the U.S. does produce the most effective vaccines in the world. And we're working with the recipient countries to make sure that they have the means to store them, in the proper conditions and distribute them. And in that regard, USAID is helping on the ground.
Thank you. Just to complement that response, I would add, so the White House, as we speak, is working very closely with the State Department, with Gail Smith's office, as well as USAID, CDC, et cetera, and partners on the ground to try to figure out how to navigate the complex modalities of all of this. Part of it depends on the particular vaccines that are used. Obviously, as you know, if Pfizer is going to be used, then that requires ultra cold chain storage and certain levels of logistics. If different ones are used, then that requires different modalities. So these are all questions that right now the White House is working through, and my understanding is that there's a commitment to the allocations being completed by June, and then shortly thereafter we will expect to see those deliveries begin. And just to reference, as my colleague said, USAID is working with these host country governments, with CARICOM in particular, to work on equitable distribution strategies and to try to help with the strategic planning associated with
I don't have too much time left, but here's where I have a problem. You have China going in and giving directly to these islands the vaccine. They take all the credit. Why can't we do the same thing and take the credit instead of giving it to COVAX or CARICOM? They may be great organizations, but I'm not looking to build those organizations. I'm looking to build our position on the Caribbean. And our position in the Caribbean should be that we should send the vaccines directly to these people, let them know that it's the United States that's helping. And the administration probably wants to build up COVAX or whatever, but I'm not interested in doing that. I wish the administration would directly do that. And when we have planes, we do things better than most people. Our vaccine is the best vaccine. And China goes into, for example, Dominican, they're giving 35,000 vaccines. They have 70,000 people on the whole island. I mean, why can't we do that and get the credit? That just bothers me too much to let it go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think your concerns are very well founded in terms of the United States being able to get the credit for the generosity of these vaccines. And all I can tell you on that front is I know the White House is very focused on communication strategies that are tailored to each donation that goes out to ensure that it is very clear to the people of those countries that the donation is coming from the United States government. In addition, all of the vaccines that are going through Gavi COVAX will be branded with the American flag on there as a further indication that this is coming from the United States.
That's one good step. Now, the other issue that I have all these loans that China is giving to these islands. What are we doing to offset that in some of these places? So they don't take all the credit from China, you know.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Chairman. You know, the United States is the natural partner of the Caribbean due to our strong historical, economic, commercial, cultural ties. And we are very present in the region, but you are correct that the PRC has, made it a point to try to gain more of a foothold in the Caribbean region. And they've done this through, as you say, loans, grants, the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as COVID-related assistance and disaster-related assistance also. So the United States is advancing our positive agenda, particularly on the economic side, to try to counter this and to be the best partner possible to the Caribbean. And this includes supporting infrastructure investment that is competitive, transparent, and upholds the highest standards, environmental, social, labor standards, which right there distinguishes our investment. We also promote resilience to the impacts of climate change, which, as you noted, is a very significant concern of the Caribbean. And this is through the U.S. Caribbean Resilience Partnership. In addition, we provide assistance in promoting energy supply diversification and helping them build more resilient energy systems. And related to telecommunications, as this is a concern as well, we encourage our partners to prioritize security as they build out their 5G networks, and to specifically exclude untrustworthy, high-risk vendors as they do so. We also help deepen cooperation between Taiwan and the region. It was mentioned earlier, they're partners. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my time is way past, and I want to make sure that the other members have the same amount of time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Congressman Green.
Well, actually, Chairman, that was my question number one for Ms. Lachman, but sort of continuing on that theme with the CCP, as we move supply chains from China to Latin America and specifically the Caribbean, what are some segments or particular industries that you think the Caribbean would, American companies and other companies should look to move to the Caribbean, both for opportunity there and decreasing our dependence on Chinese manufacturing?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranking Member, for that question. We agree the United States cannot address its supply chain vulnerabilities alone. even as the U.S. makes investments to expand domestic production capacity for some critical products, we must work with allies and partners, including in the Caribbean, to secure supplies of critical goods that we will not make in sufficient quantities at home. So we will work with allies and partners to strengthen our collective supply chain resilience while ensuring high standards for labor and environmental practices are upheld. And
Is there a particular industry or segment that you think we could target for moving to the Caribbean area? That's really my question.
Right, and I think this is something that, along with other U.S. government agencies, we can be looking at and work in tandem with you as well to identify some of those sectors.
Yeah, it's time to roll the sleeves up and get it done, right? So let's motivate the garment industry, or let's, certain agricultural industries or other things. We got to get manufacturing specifically moved from China to Latin America. But